Welcome to Promising Me Unleashed, your host, Jacqueline Jones. Joining us today is the Mr. Brian Godette, the founder of Dreams Achieved. Brian, thank you so much for joining us. Brian is the founder of Dreams Achieved.
Thank you so much for having me, Jacqueline. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, I'm so glad to have you. And before we get started, I really just want you to just share with everyone viewing about yourself, your experience, and how you came to the point of creating and becoming the founder of Dreams Achieved.
Yeah, absolutely. Humbly speaking, I just really think of myself as just the average kid from Brooklyn. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, born and raised. Family ties go back to Brooklyn, East New York for about 4 generations. So no matter where I go, wherever I find myself in life, Brooklyn will always be home for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually, when I was 25, I joined the Army. Decided to join the Army. I had 2 kids at the time and wanted something different in my life. And that was my first step really outside of Brooklyn and seeing the world and just experiencing new things. I became a public affairs soldier and I traveled to Europe. I was in Guantanamo Bay and all these different places across the US, and it really opened my eyes to different things in different communities and how people are impacted in different ways. From the military, I continued my formal education. I got my bachelor's degree while I was deployed. And when I got back from my deployment, I got my master's degree in communication and I joined corporate America. And that's where I found myself the last few years. What happened this year, 2020, was different, right? I think we all know that it was special in some unpredictable ways. And for me, it really presented itself as a time for me to reflect and really try to understand what's important to me in life. And when it came down to it, what's important to me is my home, my family, and my community, right? My people. So I wanted to give back in a way, but I wanted it to be meaningful. And I wanted to really take the time to uncover some of the most important needs that aren't being met in my community and see if I can, as the normal person from Brooklyn, see if I can address those needs in any way and become a loudspeaker and advocate for the people in my community. And that led me to here, to Dreams Achieved. And I'm just happy to be here, just happy to be in the room.
Wow. Well, listen, one of the things that I wanted to ask you, what provoked you to name it Dreams Achieved? Because that's big.
Yeah. You know what? I think for one, it's affirmation. I wanted to really focus and hone in on something that it is achievable. It's not that we're thinking about this or we're striving towards this one day, but that we will achieve it. So I wanted to have this concrete affirmation that dreams are achievable and you will achieve this dream. So dreams are achieved. And I want everyone to know that because everyone has a dream, no matter what it is. And those in Brooklyn, where I'm from, and all these vulnerable communities, especially the children, but the adults, all the residents in that community, they have dreams and aspirations. And sometimes life gets in the way and there's a lot of blocks and barriers, but it doesn't stop the dream.
Right.
So we're going to keep pushing. The hands are going to keep reaching for those stars, and we're going to achieve those dreams.
Yeah, it's something that you say, and you have it posted so beautifully underneath your Dream to Achieve logo. You say, a dream realized can be a dream achieved. And so I see that happening where you are realizing your dream is the first step to achieving your dream. I think you say that also. So just tell me, as it relates to your mission, what are the core values or core ideals that you're implementing in Brooklyn under Dreams Achieved?
Yeah, absolutely. The mission of Dreams Achieved is really to close this socioeconomic gap that has really put some residents, some people behind the curve, in comparison to others. And to that point, I think the strongest way we can go about making tangible change in the community where I'm from is to focus on four pillars. The initial pillar is going to be nutrition and nutrition education.
Mhm.
I think it's fundamental to, you have to feed the people, feed this immediate need,
Right.
um, before you can teach and learn and move on to the next step, right? You have to feed the people. Um, that is figuratively and literally speaking, because
Right.
this year alone, food insecurity and nutrition has been some of the hardest, for issues in the community where I'm from and all across the country due to the pandemic and COVID-19. From nutrition, we move on to another very important topic, which is mental health.
Mm.
Mental health outreach, really. So identifying and seeking help and these resources in the community for the residents. It's become a factor in especially vulnerable communities where people aren't getting the help they need, and it leads to this trickle down effect of this degradation of the community. Uh, Mental health, of course, and from there we always have to focus on the future. So really focusing on the youth is important as well. So youth mentorship,
Yes.
starting from young, we're building our future, and we have to ensure that we provide to them all the tools they need, they need to grow, like a garden, a flower. Um, and then, of course, holistically speaking, we're talking about the whole community. We want to talk about the economic aspect. So the employment outreach for our adults and young adults, ensuring that they have the same opportunities or access to employment that anyone else would have in a different area of the city or the state.
Mhm. Yeah, and I want to kind of peel some of those initiatives. We talked about, or you mentioned the inequalities of the people. Where did you find that to be most prevalent, or how did you come to that? I won't say that you came to that conclusion because I think it has always existed. But we talked about, and this is a discussion we had previously about the compare. There's something that you mentioned in or on your website that makes reference to a person's health, access to education, employment, nutrition, and achieving their dreams should not be determined by his or her zip code. That snagged me immediately because apparently there are some disparities that either have been ignored or kind of been pushed under the rug ever so quietly in some respects, but the impact is really loud. So just kind of talk to us about that.
Yeah, it snagged you and it snagged me when I first learned about it. Early on in developing Dream to Achieve, I did my homework, I did the research. And unfortunately, it's as easy as doing a quick Google search with city provided and state provided statistics on areas by zip code. And of course, I typed in the zip code from where I'm from, Brooklyn, East New York, because growing up in the area, you become so close to it, you kind of get too close that you don't see the issues from this holistic standpoint.
A little
So
desensitized to it, right?
yeah, you're
Mhm.
almost desensitized to it,
Yeah.
right? So I put in the information, I put in my zip code for Brooklyn, East New York, and it was staggering. The level of poverty, the rates. I mean, statistically, the city is tracking this
Yeah.
level of poverty, the level of the ailments facing the residents as far as their health is concerned,
Mhm.
the unemployment rate, the homicide rate, and we're getting to the education attainment rate. My community was leading in all these factors that no community would want to be leading in. And then if you look just, a few towns over,
Mhm.
it's almost the complete opposite,
Right.
and they're not that far. It's maybe a few train stops away and you're in another part of Brooklyn, not even outside of Brooklyn. We're talking another town within Brooklyn
Mhm.
where you're seeing the complete opposite, and it's what's really driving that. And what we have to be, really clear about is racial, this racial aspect of racial inequality and systemic racism that Brooklyn, where I'm from, is predominantly Black and Hispanic residents,
Mhm.
and this other area in Brooklyn that's, they have the quality and access to all these things, the makeup of the group of people in that particular town is quite different.
Mhm.
So addressing the elephant in the room, it's staggering to see it in black and white, but it's what led me to really push push forward with Dreams Achieved.
Right. And how do you erase that line of difference so that everyone has access to the same services, the same education, the same food sources? I know that there have been issues in terms of the availability of food. I'm not talking about just those that go out and do it once a month or once a year, but the daily access to food. And I'm talking about quality food. Can you kind of speak to that too? Because I'm
Yeah,
sure.
definitely. I mean, first and foremost, food is a right. Is a God-given right. We
Right.
we need it like we need air.
Hmm.
And in communities like East New York, there's one supermarket for every 13 bodegas or corner stores, we call them in New York.
Hmm.
Uh, the disparity there is the quality of food you get, the fresh produce, the meat, what we need to fuel our bodies
Yes.
and prevent these diseases that, subsequently happen because of poor diets. So it's a combination of the access to the food.
Hmm.
In our community, we don't have as many, Trader Joe's or Whole Foods or even supermarkets that provide this level of, quality foods to ensure that the people are healthy.
Yeah.
So they're going to access what they can access, what's close to them. And unfortunately, it's this convenience store kind of food, high in sugars, poor nutritional health,
And expensive.
expensive as well.
Yes.
Expensive as well. And for those who want to do more, they have to travel so far just to access something that's a little better for them. But what happens here is because they can't access this or it's not available to them, they
Mhm.
eat what's in their arm length, right?
Mhm.
But that leads to these health concerns as far as obesity. My community is leading in obesity in the city. I
Mhm.
mean, in the entire New York City, Brooklyn, East New York is one of the leading communities in obesity rates. I mean, amongst children and adults. Hypertension, heart disease, all these are preventable diseases that are factors because of the food quality and access in that community. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things we really want to address, uh, which is why we have to take this three-pronged approach to it. So we have to feed the individuals right now
Right.
because a lot of people are suffering with food insecurity. They don't even have food to eat.
Mhm.
So we want to provide them food right now. The second part is advocating for quality food in that community.
Right.
And then that third step is educating the people,
Mhm.
on the foods that they should eat, because a lot of this sometimes is uh, a family generational thing as far as what they eat and what they feel comfortable with eating.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's changing that mentality as well. So
Mhm.
it's going to take a lot, but food is such a crux in the understanding and improvement in our community.
Yeah. And the other thing that you mentioned was mental health. Which I firmly believe, and we probably can talk about this, I think, more freely under the current situation that everyone is dealing with right now. Mental
Right.
health was pretty much isolated to those who had mental health conditions and their families and the support of those families. But we're finding that this is happening or becoming more of an issue as a result of the climate of what we're dealing with right now. And I believe it impacts all of those areas. It impacts the nutrition, it impacts the education. What things are happening in New York to try to address those things and things that Dreams Achieve may have access to in order to support people who are dealing with mental health challenges?
Yeah, I mean, New York is a great city. It's a big city, and to their credit, the city has actually provided a lot of resources for individuals to seek help, to find help, and to get help when it comes to mental health crisis. COVID-19 has really changed the landscape for mental health, and it's opened a dialogue for a
Mhm.
lot of people. Mental health concerns are there's scars that aren't visible. So sometimes it's hard to treat. It's also hard to find. Although the city is providing a lot of different resources and outlets for mental health, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So Dreams Achieved is really trying to bridge that gap to inform the community about these resources, to help them identify issues within their family, within their community, and then linking them with these resources that are already available. New York City, for one, they have crisis mobile teams for mental health concerns, where there's individuals who will come out to you and they assess the situation. They provide diagnosis and treatment if needed. And this is ongoing services. There's so many numbers and outlets that people can really lean on for support, but you you have to be able to find it. You have to have access to it. You have to know about it.
Mhm.
Uh, and I think Dreams Achieved mission is really bridging that gap and working as the speakerphone for some of these services, so that we inform our community so that they know. When you know more, you do
You do
more. You
more.
know better,
Yeah.
you do
Yeah.
better. And I think that's our role right now, because it's so important, given the climate that we're in and these unforeseen factors that really impact the mental stability of just the average person who may not have even had to think about dealing with a mental crisis prior to 2020 and the pandemic, but now find themselves in this new world where things are just crashing down all around them. And we're really trying to shine a light on this to make it more normalized to speak about and seek help for.
Yeah. And that educational piece is so important because you may not even know that you're having a mental health,
Right.
episode. You might think, oh, this is just the horrors of COVID, or the horrors of the loss of a job, or the horrors of, families being dismantled almost because of the pressure associated with what we are dealing with now. So, as far as Dreams Achieved is concerned, it's a huge undertaking.
It is.
To really to say, I'm going to stick this thing out and see that the people in the community that I grew up in are gaining access to the resources that they need to improve their lives, despite what is going on. Just as a norm, you said it best, it's a right to have good food. It's a right to have equal education. As we look at the disparities, because what we know that there are disparities. We talked about racial inequality and things like that. One of the questions that I think I posed to you a little bit prior to, about the support that we need in our communities. Can we, if we're talking about predominantly underserved communities, where there's a higher ratio of African Americans, Hispanic descent, our minority brothers, how can we, or is it possible for us to really move this pendulum forward without the assistance of our, let's say, our white counterparts? How can we, or is it possible to move forward without that level of participation as well?
I mean, the simple answer, I'm going to say no. And what it is it takes a village. There's so many strategic partners involved in the forward progression of what we're doing and what we need to succeed in life, that no one person, no one group can do it on its own. And yes, I mean, in the ideal world, we will do it on our own. We will, we'll move forward on our own. I think at one point, we will get there where we're completely self-reliant. But where we find ourselves right now, we have to be realistic about society, about where our station is in life, and we need the support of others to help uplift each other. So and it's going to take a lot. It's involvement from the community, it's involvement from partner nonprofit organizations and corporations, it's involvement from our white counterparts, as well as our black counterparts. So it's really this collective idea, and once we start accepting this collective idea of moving forward, we start to see that progress, that tangible progress, and inching closer to the finish line. And at some point in the future, we'll get to that point where we're completely self-reliant. Our community is on the same playing field that we should have been on from the
All
start.
along,
But,
yes.
yeah, for so long, but we're getting there, and everyone needs help along the way, and until you're strong enough to do so on your own. And I think that's where we are right now. We're looking for that collective mindset.
Right. And it's all about moving the will of the people,
Right.
getting the people engaged. One of the things you said, the value, and I can't quote it directly, but you mentioned something to the effect that the value of a community is its people. That's really the value in really being able to change the mindset that might be just indicative to the situation having been what it has been for so long, or to even watch it deteriorating and saying, okay, dreams achieved is going to come back in and make a difference. One of the things that was very intriguing to me, I think you had it up on your website, that made reference to that quote that said, we are our ancestors' wildest dream. And I tell you, when I saw that, I went on a hunt, because it wasn't the first time I saw that quote. I was actually at an event, and all the people in the room, it was predominantly all female, we were, summoned to get up and say that we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. And I wanted to know, where did that come from? To see it on your site just brought it back to me. So I did a little research. And it seemed to have come from a gentleman named Russell Godette, who was a medical student. And he had taken some of his classmates to this plantation in Louisiana. And they take this picture of the classmates standing in front of one of the slave cabins. And he said it just came to him that he was in a place where it used to be bondage, but now it's a place of freedom where we're educating ourselves and we're coming out, we're out in front of the movement of education, and becoming great things. And so he said something about that moment was like the epitome of resilience. But what reminded me of Dreams Achieved was when he said this. He said he likened it to putting seeds in the cement, and they still grow out of the cement. That reminded me of Dreams Achieved, because I can only imagine, and Brian, I'm sure you can attest to this, going back in the community was not an easy, it was probably easy to go because you were familiar, but going back in to try to make the type of change that you are so valiantly making had to be something pretty heroic. I mean, you're looking at cement.
You know what?
Right?
And I would not be the one to think of it as heroic, right? I think
I think I can say that.
yeah. I think all too often we see or we equate success with getting out of a community like Brooklyn, East New York, or these underserved communities. Like you only do good in life if you are able to make it out of the community. But we never talk about going back into the community to uplift that community. So that's not even part of the conversation anymore. I think a success is going back to the community and building it up for others to do well, to live well, and to have access to all of these things. Brooklyn, East New York, and these underserved communities, they are hard. They're hard living there. They're hard growing up there. It's hard surviving there. So it is like cement. It's like putting seeds in cement, because I see it every day. I see the people in my community. These are beautiful people. These are smart people. These are strong people. These are resilient people to the next point. So yes, I mean, they're flourishing with so little, and that's what's so beautiful about it. The beauty of in the storm, that they are flourishing with so little. And for so long, our community, we've had to get acclimated and adjusted and comfortable with struggle. Struggle has become a norm to us where it shouldn't be. So we're making it work, of course, because that's what we do. And to the point of our ancestors, the resilience that they faced, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams, because now we can take it a step further. We can help each other, and we can continue to show that resilience that they had, but use this new hope, this newfound power to uplift our entire community and get on this level playing field so that we're strong together.
Right. And that's beautiful. And I think that's the place that we need to go in terms of not settling for where we are if it
Right.
is not benefiting us to live out our lives better. And so when you see the disparities across zip code lines and you come back and you're looking at your community, you're saying, wait a minute. Yes, we're in the struggle. We're surviving, but we need to be thriving. And that's the difference. How do I thrive in this community? I know what it looks like. I know what it, the impact that it's having, because you got to think about this. And you mentioned it too. And when you were talking about the nutrition piece, if my parents don't teach me about nutrition well enough for me to know the benefit of vegetables, the fresh produce, then I carry on that unless I educate or unless someone comes into my community to show me that there's a better way to eat, I then carry that on to my children. And so when you take or undertake what you've done with Dreams Achieved, the challenge of going back into that community and breaking down some of those generational habits, if you will,
Right.
that is valiant. That is heroic. And you don't have to be great everywhere. But if you can make a difference in your community, that's all the difference in the world. You mentioned youth mentorship. Just want to kind of piggyback on that. How are you entrenching Dreams Achieved into the youth mentorship aspect of your mission?
Yeah, absolutely. And a part of that really focuses on partnerships. It's really working with our education facilities and leaders in the community to, one, gain access to those residents and build this rapport of trust
Mm-hmm.
with congregations, with family members, with these scholastic institutions, and really try to partner with these individuals so that we can create this two-way street of providing resources,
Mm-hmm.
but also providing outlets to our youth as far as visible, tangible representations of individuals who have succeeded in life, and letting them know that this is acceptable. Barack Obama becoming president of the United States as a Black man was the strongest visual representation for young Black boys, young Black children to see that they can aspire to more. The same thing needs to be done on a smaller scale in our own communities. Not just a police officer or a fireman or a doctor or a lawyer, but the gentleman who works at the corporate offices for Morgan Stanley, the very recent college graduate from the HBCU, just coming back into the community, highlighting that this is a route that I took.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from a community like you're from. This is what it takes to get to these points. You can do it because I can do it. And I'm real life, walking, talking proof that this is available to you. So combining that and just really bridging that gap so that there is something more tangible for our children to look forward to, and working with these scholastic institutions to help with the day-to-day things as well, as far as that education prep, the homework help, and just really building the self-confidence in our community for our young people.
Yeah. And so, Brian, I guess I wanted to ask you personally, because I don't believe this was just something you woke up one day and said, I want to do this. There had to be something inbred. I believe in God-given purpose and God-given destiny. What was in you that really drove you back to your community to give in the way that you're giving now?
Yeah, you want to know what was the promise in me? And I tell you,
You better know it.
It's really intrinsic, right? It's really, it's growing up where I'm from. I'm a product of my community, and I've been on the end of those statistics that are dealt and I was able to read today, as far as poverty is concerned, I grew up in poverty. I grew up, I've had times where I was hungry. I didn't have much to eat, you know.
Mhm.
I've experienced firsthand the lack of quality education in my neighborhood, you
Mhm.
know, firsthand dealing with that and that fight to really make it to the next step. And I've dealt with the unfortunate aspect of crime and you know, being a product of or being on the horrible side of police brutality and racial profiling. And, you know, a lot of friends that I grew up with, they're not here today. If I would have stayed in this bubble where I was in Brooklyn, East New York, it's quite possible that I wouldn't be here today. I never thought I would live to see 35. I'm 35 years old. I mean, it's funny. It's not funny now, but I laugh now because growing up, I did not think I would live to see this day, to see this age, and to see the things that I've seen in life, the reach the measures I've reached, and to be here with dreams achieved now. This was a dream, you
Mhm.
know, and I've the promise in me was to really help someone else. It didn't matter how many people, you know, as long as I'm helping someone else
Yes.
to see that there is more, that they can do more, that their dream can be achieved. That's where I am, and that's what drove me.
Yeah, yeah. I love where you say you work with a purpose. There's one thing to work just because, you know, it's a paycheck or it's a means to an end, but to work with a purpose. And so, and this is what you say, you address racial inequality in East New York by closing the socioeconomic gap for the residents, uplifting the community through multi-phased plan focused on those four core values.
Right.
Um, and I guess what my maybe last question is, what do you see for dreams achieved going forward? Because I like when you said dreams achieved. Edie, that's a done deal. That's not something that you're aspiring to or something that you're hoping or wishing is going to take place. But it is dreams achieved. So, what is your vision beyond what you're doing right now? And I also just wanted, well, there was one other thing that I want to ask you before you even mention that. When it comes down to community advocacy,
Mhm.
um, how have you been able to engage the community? And I speak about community advocates because I think that's the one of the best ways of getting people to kind of catch on. If Joe down the street uses Tide, then I know it's good.
Right. That's right.
So, what kind of community advocacy are you utilizing to kind of help spread the story or spread the news or spread information about dreams achieved?
Yeah, I mean, relationships, partnerships, it's the foundation for success in this landscape, in this industry. And it's really important for me to initially, before I even started to speak and scream it from the clouds that dreams achieved are here, where we want to help, I first and foremost went to community leaders, to other nonprofits, to let them know that what we're about, but also that we want to help and we want to partner and we want to just make our voices louder together because we have one goal, which is to uplift the community and to help the people in that community. So
Any challenges there?
some challenges, absolutely. I think along the way, there's going to be challenges on multiple fronts. There's going to
Yeah.
be challenges with the residents and changing their mindsets and the generational habits that we've talked about before. There's going to be challenges with funding as far as getting, you know, fundraising and provisions from the city or from other places. And then challenges with working with peers and partners,
Mhm.
because sometimes in the nonprofit space, it becomes a little territorial. I think initially when I approached some individuals, that
Mhm.
was kind of the the feedback that I got. Well, dreams
Who's
achieved.
this guy?
Yeah, like one, who are you? Two, if your mission is the same as my mission, how are we going to get the funding we need if it's so limited? I mean, funding for nonprofits, especially if it's city backed, is definitely from a limited pot. So if you add another player into that, you know, one player is going to think, well, now you're taking away from my resources, from my goal.
Mhm.
And you know, that was some of the feedback that I initially, received
Mhm.
in introducing Dreams Achieve and trying to develop these partnerships.
Right.
And what we had to do, which is the same approach we have to do with the people and all these other constituents, is really try to bring a new way of thinking about different things. So a new way of thinking about how you're eating, a new way of thinking about how we're raising funds, a new way of thinking about how we're going to work together. And I think that's after some long conversations and really hashing it out, we came to this conclusion that we can thrive together. We're
Mhm.
stronger together,
Right.
and we just maybe have to think outside the box as far as how we are going to ensure that our missions, our critical missions, are being funded, implemented, and how we're helping the community together. But it's going to take, it's going to be a bumpy road, you know, and I'm going to face a lot of challenges, I think, in the community.
Mhm.
But that's the purpose, right? So if you're working with purpose,
Mhm.
then it doesn't matter the challenges. You're always going to be ready, willing, and able to face those challenges head on and think of creative ways to climb those hurdles, really.
Mhm. So I guess back to my question then is, what is your vision for Dreams Achieved beyond what you're doing right now? Where do you see it going? I can tell
Yeah.
you where I see it going, but where do you see it going?
I see, for one, I see it growing. I see it being this scalable organization and mission and thought process, because my focus right now is Brooklyn, East New York. It's a small community in Brooklyn, is where I'm from. I'm trying to impact those people.
Mhm.
But Brooklyn, the things that are facing and plaguing East New York are being faced by vulnerable communities all across the country, all across the world. So
Mhm.
it doesn't matter if I'm in New York, you know, the same thing's happening in DC, same thing's happening in Maryland, same thing in Texas, in Florida, in California. There's a community right now that's underserved. The people are on the bad end of the stick,
Yeah.
and they need people and regular people in their community to advocate for them, to speak up, and to really like push this narrative that change is possible, change, and you're deserving of it. But it's going to take us. It's going to take the regular individual in the community to do so. And I'm hoping that Dreams Achieve inspires others to do
Yeah.
what we're doing, to to really become a voice, because we don't have to wait on someone else to do it for us. We have to light our own path.
Mhm.
And if Dreams Achieved can serve as that Saturday morning inspiration to someone saying, you know what, today's the day. I'm going to go out into my community. I'm going to pull these resources together. I'm going to try and make an impact. We do that on a large scale, we are moving that needle.
Yeah.
We are getting to where we need to be.
Mhm.
So Dreams Achieved growing to affect everyone in Brooklyn, East New York, Brooklyn, in New York, and then eventually the world. The
Yeah.
world.
It's funny when you said today's the day. That was my mother's favorite quote. As a matter of fact, she wasn't even talking while she was sick, but every now and then she would say, "Today's the day."
Mhm.
And it's so true. And someone has to be brave enough to make a difference.
The
Um,
time is always now to
yeah.
do what is right. Always.
Yep. Yep. The time is now. So just can you tell us how people can learn more about Dreams Achieved, and how they can support Dreams Achieved?
Absolutely. Dreams Achieve, the support is, I think, the biggest thing for any nonprofit. We need that support from the community, from the listeners, you guys listening. You can visit Dreams Achieved online at our webpage at www.dreamsachievednyc.org. You can follow us on Instagram at Dreams Achieve NYC, Facebook, same name, Dreams Achieve NYC, and
We're gonna
LinkedIn.
drill it. Dreams Achieved.
Dreams Achieved, Dreams Achieved. One more time, Dreams Achieved. NYC. We are. and it's to not only support what we're doing, just to follow along, just to see what we're doing in the community. Again, because it's not only serving as a platform for individuals to view, to support, but to learn maybe, and to become inspired to, maybe you can take something from what we're doing and apply it to where you are. That's everywhere I go, every person I encounter is going to be a learning experience for me. And I'm trying to take something from everywhere. And I think that can be applied to individuals as well. Visit our webpage, visit our social media, see what we're doing, see how we're implementing or trying to implement change in our community, and take hold of that and see what you can do in your own community. The support comes from the awareness, so spreading that message. And I would hope that people will spread our message. And if those who are available to do so, or in that position to do so, to donate to the organization, just donate tabs on the webpage and on social media. But those donations, we are a 501(c)(3) organization, or tax, deductible, but they drive our mission. They drive our events. We had a recent event for Thanksgiving, giving up. We impacted over 400 families in East New York, providing free turkeys, fresh groceries, and PPE.
Wow.
We have a few events coming up this month, December.
I'm going to ask you about that, because this is the season, right?
This is the season. This is the season, and we're taking full hold of that. We are going to the men's shelter in Brooklyn, East New York, and donating hygiene and meal packs to the men there who are facing hard times, and they have been facing hard times for some time now. We're doing a toy drive for the children later this month, and we're doing another food giveaway, because, like I said before, food insecurity is a huge problem right now all across the U.S. These food shortages that we're facing. So we're doing another food giveaway for Christmas, to ensure that these families have at least a very warm, very hearty and healthy, nutritious meal for the holidays. And we have so many things planned down the line, but a lot of this, it takes the support of the community. It takes a village. It takes volunteers, and it takes the financial support sometimes from our loved ones, our community.
Right. Well, Brian, I can just only commend you for the efforts that you're making and that you're taking to make dreams achieved a reality for the folks in East Brooklyn, New York. Didn't know there was a East Brooklyn.
Yeah, this Brooklyn is huge.
Yes. But this is wonderful. And there's nothing like following the God-given passion that's in your heart. That succeeded even your successes in the corporate realm, or even in the military space, to really kind of go back and give back to those people who you are impassioned about. So I can only commend you and just tell you thank you. Keep hope alive, and keep pushing. Keep pushing forward, because it is so necessary, and it is awesome to see examples of success. Like I said, you don't have to be great everywhere. You said it very poignantly when you mentioned President Obama. He became the president to give us an example of what we could achieve, not to make him responsible for what we achieve, but an example of what we could achieve. And that happens little by little as it relates to the things that you are doing with Dreams Achieved. So I just want to tell you, thank you so much. We will share your information, and definitely would love to have you come back and just kind of talk to us some more about some of the awesome things that you are doing. So we look forward to having another conversation with you on Promise in Me Unleashed.
Jacqueline, thank you so much for having me. I will gladly be at your beck and call anytime you need me to come back. I appreciate you, and thank you for being that representation, that embodiment of success, of what it is and what it means to be an advocate for our community, and providing this platform for individuals like myself. So thank you.
Most certainly. And we'll see you in 2021.
You know this.
Okay, will do. Stay safe. Again, thank you, Brian Godette, founder of Dreams Achieved. And we look forward to more conversations with him on Promise in Me Unleashed.